Hello and welcome to Lansing Pulse. I'm Ken Miller, joined as always by City Administrator Tim Vandall. Tim, the City Council and City staff really have spent a lot of time discussing the issue of extending a mask mandate. Of course, we're wearing masks right now. The council vote was cast in late March to pass Ordinance 1056, and there's a lot of numbers here, but 1056 is going to be the ordinance that affects the April mask wearing. There are issues in Topeka, however, that could change the course of this ordinance locally. And this is an as of right now question. We're recording this on March 30th. There is going to be another city council meeting on April 1st, 2 days from now. But as of right now, what do we know related to masks in Lansing?
So you're right, Senate Bill 40 scaled back some of the governor's authority to issue executive orders in a health emergency, and it adds a little bit of legislative oversight as well. And so Lansing's previous mask requirements, they all referenced a lot of those executive orders, and those expire on March 31st, and it sounds like any subsequent mask requirement orders coming from Governor Kelly's office could be voted down in the legislature. So what we did end up doing, we tried to do a little bit of research on our end, and we can present an updated mask requirement to the city council that doesn't reference those older executive orders. We need to reference the legitimacy of masks reducing the spread of COVID a little bit. So I think we're including some type of CDC study in there, but also referencing local home rule for Kansas municipalities. And what that means for folks is if there is something that's not specifically forbidden in the Kansas Constitution, there's no state statute forbidding something under legislative home rule, Kansas municipalities have the authority to make their own rules as long as it's not expressly forbidden in Kansas. And we're presenting that to the city council. They can make their decision based on that. But so we do think that will alleviate some of the concerns that we had with Senate Bill 40. A couple things that I want to say too. This has really been a challenging time for the city, for city staff, and for our governing body as well. I know that whole issue, they all gave a lot of thought to it, regardless of which side they were on. I know all 9 of them really thought long and hard about what's best for Lansing. And I think Councilman Garvey said it really well at the end of the last meeting. He had said something to the effect of, we can have really good, thorough discussions, but at the end of the day, we respect each other, we respect each other's views. Even if I lose the vote or if you lose the vote or whatever, we need to respect each other's views. And I was really glad Councilman Garvey had said that at the end of the last meeting. Secondly, the other thing that's really challenging too, we haven't had an issue like this happen in over 100 years. There's no playbook that we can turn back to for some pandemic that happened in 1985 or something like that. So right now, we have our elected officials doing the best they can with the information that they have. And again, I know our city council's doing as much research as they can. And the other thing that I want to say too, I know we've had some people say, hey, I've contacted this council member and he didn't vote how I wanted or vice versa. But the thing that folks have to remember, for every person who contacts this Lansing City Council saying, please keep masks in place, you have another person emailing them saying, please rescind the mask requirement. For every person asking to rescind the mask requirement, you have folks asking for them to keep it. So this really hasn't been an easy issue for anybody on our team. But again, we're doing the best we can with the information that we have right now.
Right. As somebody who's been with the city for going on 16 years, I won't say it's rare, but I would say it's uncommon to see a split vote by our city council, especially on issues that are going to affect a majority of the people who live in town. So, and I think you were also addressing that some of the vitriol that we saw on social media. The bottom line is these are folks who were elected, and I think you referenced Councilman Garvey's statement. Yeah. They're elected. I think, in the 16 years I've been here, I think the group that we have right now and take COVID out of it, but the group we have right now has really, it's been collegial. I think they work together really well. You haven't seen heated discussions, whether before or after council meetings, to my knowledge. So I guess I'm piggybacking on what you said.
You're right. There's a lot of votes in local government that are 7-1 or 8-0, but you know, we've had some 5-3s lately,
Right.
And we've had a couple of them on pretty important issues. And again, the discussion is always robust, but it's always respectful. And I think you know, maybe Washington D.C. could learn a little bit from Lansing, Kansas.
Right. Okay, let's move on to, I guess, what government is known for more than pandemic response, and that's crafting budgets, annual budgets. So we've got the 2022 budget. I believe this month is when really you and finance staff and the council, the mayor, start to work on that. So what's the early update on our next year's budget?
So it's looking right now that the valuation is going to go up a little bit, and that's always helpful. I know for citizens that's a double-edged sword because you know, a lot of folks' valuations have increased quite a bit, but that's going up, so that makes it easier for us to fund raises for police officers or to purchase new snow plows or whatever. Our sales tax revenues are also going up, so that's pretty nice as well. Mayor McNeil, our finance director, Beth Sanford, and I, we all met together a couple of weeks ago to talk about this upcoming budget process. And I know Mayor McNeil really challenged us to look at our expenses and look at our revenues and see what we can do. And if there's any fat that can be trimmed, or if there's any way we can offset the property tax rate a little bit. So I know that's something Beth Sanford and I are going to be looking at. Because I know, like I said, I know the mayor's hearing it from citizens. I know our city council's hearing it from citizens, that since valuation is going up so much, the city should try to offset the mill levy a little bit. And so I know Mayor McNeil challenged us to take a look at that. Regarding the meat and potatoes of the budget, though, I know the one thing that's going to be really interesting as we come into the spring and the summer is this Parks and Rec improvement plan that we're working on right now. So that's going to be $5 million worth of Parks and Recreation improvements that, you know, we will need to be paying for. And a lot of that is coming from the special sales tax that was passed by the voters 4 or 5 years ago, but that only pays for about 40 or 50% of the park improvements that we have planned. So another component of this budget will be ensuring that we have funds to pay off the debt service for those park improvements without increasing property taxes. So it's one of those things. It's going to be an interesting line to walk, in that we want to see $4, $5, $6 million worth of park improvements, but we also are going to try to you know, honor our taxpayers a little bit and see if we can scale back the mill levy slightly. So it'll be an interesting budget season. But you know, overall, I feel like the city's on really solid financial footing. Our governing body has done a really good job trying to plan ahead, and I think we're in good shape going into this summer.
Okay, and when you talk about budgets, there's so many different things that go into it, one of which is development and future development. Let's talk a little bit about that, particularly in the north part of town.
Yeah.
Start with the new car wash. I mean, there's a structure there now.
You know, we talked last year about Quick Trip, how it seemed like every time you drove by, another wall was going up or something new was happening, and that's how it's been with the car wash lately too. The last few weeks, it's been really exciting to see the progress that they've made up there at the Club Car Wash site on West Eisenhower. I believe the rain has slowed them down a little bit. I think they were trying to work on their roof, and the rain set them back maybe a week or so. But walls are up, and they're working on the facade, and they're working on interior finishings. So there's, you know, we're really excited. I think that's going to open hopefully in the next couple of months, and I think that's going to be a great addition to Lansing. You know, also on that north end of town, just a few days ago, Harbor Freight closed on that property at Main and Connie, so they are now the owners of that. All of the site plans and building permits have been approved for Harbor Freight. I want to say there's just a couple of things that need to be approved with their contractors. If there's any contractors who aren't licensed with the city, we just, you know, we always go through that process to make sure that the folks they're hiring meet all of our rules. But we're hoping that Harbor Freight breaks ground in April, and we're hoping for a November grand opening. And that will be incredibly exciting. And we were talking about sales tax a few minutes ago. Harbor Freight is one of those stores that's going to generate a lot of sales tax for Lansing. You know, when you buy some of those tools there, when you're spending $100 or $200, sales tax really racks up quickly. As a reminder for folks about Harbor Freight, though, the access for that will be off of Connie Street.
Right.
We don't have permission from the Department of Transportation to add any type of entrance there for them off of K7. So their main access point will be off of Connie Street. But overall, I think that's going to be a fantastic addition to the K7 corridor. And then finally, the Mutual Savings Building right next to Petro Deli, that's coming along really well. I think they're hopefully going to be open in the next month or so. But that's just it's a beautiful building, and I'm really excited for that to be there. And they just installed their sign recently, so I think there's a lot of really good things going on. Beyond the actual items that folks can see right now, we also have had a lot of interest in the town center property, and we're hoping to maybe see some dirt being moved maybe later this year in early 2022. One of the misconceptions I think that sometimes folks have, you know, when someone's building a multi-million-dollar building, it takes longer than just a month or two.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's studies that go into things to make sure that this is the right place for a certain business to be. There's all of these architectural drawings that need to be approved, building plans that need to be approved. So it's, you know, just because folks don't see a building going up in 1 month doesn't mean nothing's happening. There are things happening there. It's just those types of things take a little bit of time. But overall, there's just a lot of development going on in Lansing right now. Our Community and Economic Development Director, Matt Schmitz, is doing a fantastic job. And it's a very exciting time to be in Lansing right now.
And who'd have thunk, as we come out of pandemic, that's good news.
You're right. We didn't expect this much growth taking place in the middle of the pandemic, but we've been very fortunate. A lot of hard work is paying off right now.
Good. All right, let's circle back to Parks and Recreation. You brought that up earlier. We are finishing up registration at the end of March here for baseball, softball, and t-ball. So it appears that, and particularly because it's an outdoor sports season, but it appears that youth sports leagues are returning to some semblance of normal.
Yeah, so our spring soccer registration, that's going on right now, but those numbers
Baseball, t-ball, softball is going on.
Yeah, baseball team. What I was going to say though is the soccer registration though, those numbers were back to pre-pandemic levels, and so that was very exciting. So I think our baseball, t-ball, softball figures will also be very good as well. But you're right, baseball, softball, t-ball, that registration ends March 31st. Sometimes if we're down a little bit, we can have people register late. I want to say there might be a $5 or $10 late registration fee, but please try to get those registrations in by the close of business on March 31st. And I tell you what, Ken, there's something nostalgic about going to a t-ball game, sitting on those bleachers out in Lansing on a warm summer night, you know, going to Dairy Queen or Freddy's and getting ice cream afterward. I'm really excited about it. I've got kids in that age range, and I know they're excited about it as well. And not only that, though, I think, you know, parents are excited. I think the governing body's excited. You're right. We're getting back into a sense of normalcy, and it helps that those three activities are all outdoor activities. And but I think it's going to be a really exciting summer for a lot of those kiddos.
All right, let's wrap it up. And again, as the warm weather is upon us now, Lansing residents can also look forward to street repair season. I say that half jokingly, looking forward to it. But I know the guys were filling potholes earlier in March. I took a little video of that. Got a phone call today that the street sweeper is going to be out, the city street sweeper. We also have mill and overlay season coming up. So how extensive will the maintenance part of street repair be in Lansing this year?
You know, it's going to be pretty extensive, but you know, before I kick off into this, I just want to say those street department guys, a lot of times they're the unsung heroes in Lansing. you know, when they're plowing snow in the middle of the night and it's dark outside, or when they're patching roads and there's cars zipping by them
Right.
quickly, those guys don't get the credit they deserve. So if you see those guys out there, give them a tip of the cap, because they are some of the unsung heroes in Lansing. Regarding how extensive our road improvements will be this year, it's going to be significant. We have penciled in $750,000 for improvements this year. So every time, you know, someone's purchasing something at Quick Trip or whatever, I mean, a lot of that money goes to street improvements in Lansing. One of the things that's challenging about the street improvements that we're making this year, West McIntyre has had a lot of issues the last year and a half with Petromat rolling up. And that's such a long stretch of roadway that even though we're doing $750,000 of street improvements, a really significant chunk is going to just that one road. You know, if that road was a different type of surface, we could just do like an asphalt overlay on top of it, and that would save us time and that would save us money.
That's somewhat similar to what happened on 4H, correct?
You're exactly right. A couple of years ago, we had the exact same thing happen on 4H. So you've got to get that stuff off the ground. The Petromat material, you have to get that off the road. Otherwise, if you do an overlay on top of that, you're going to have road failures pretty soon. So that's one of the reasons why West McIntyre is such a significant portion of the road improvements this year. Beyond that, though, I want to say our mill and overlay bids are scheduled to be opened on April 27th. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed for good bids this year. I think it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be a productive summer for us. But you know, there's going to be a lot of improvements out there, and again, it's expensive for the city. So we apologize about any delays that are going to occur, but the finished product will be that much better.
All right, I've been speaking with Tim Vandall, City Administrator for the City of Lansing. For Lansing Pulse, I'm Ken Miller.